Hello, and welcome back. This is the second portion of Lecture 1 for Bio158, A Human Approach. If you're following along on the note sheet that accompanies these slides, we will be starting with question number 4. In question number 4, all life responds to the environment. It's important to note here that something in the environment that causes a response is known as a stimulus. We can see examples below of living things responding to their environment. Can you figure out what's going on in each picture? The picture in the lower left is a picture of a cat with what's called its hackles raised. Why do cats and other mammals do this? Well, it's actually an evolutionary response to predators. Their hair stands up to make them appear larger than they actually are. In doing this, hopefully, this scares off any predators that they may be facing. You might be surprised to know that this actually happens to us too. We can't really see it because we've lost most of our body hair through evolution. But have you ever felt the hair stand up on the back of your neck when you're a little afraid or frightened? That's exactly what's happening. So your hackles are raising, although you can't see it because we don't have body hair anymore. In the middle image, we see plants responding to their environment. I know, you might be thinking, how does a plant actually respond to their environment? They can't actually move, right? They're anchored in the dirt. But they actually can. Here we see plant stalks bending towards a light source, like the sun. So we know that plants need sunlight to survive, so they respond to their environment by bending closer to their light source where they get those vital nutrients. And finally, probably something we've all experienced in our lifetimes, over in the lower right corner of our screen. Can we figure out what's going on here? Yep, looks like he ate his ice cream a bit too fast, and now he has what's commonly referred to as an ice cream headache. And this is our body's response to the environment, responding to exactly what he's eating, right? Something very cold, and now he has an ice cream headache. Next, all life regulates its internal environment. The regulation of the internal environment is known as homeostasis. Now, the outside environment is always attempting to alter you, and you are always interacting with it. Your body has developed a number of mechanisms to maintain its internal state. Can you think of any examples off the top of your head? Some we can actually see on the right side of the slide here. And I think a great example, something we're all very familiar with, is what happens when our bodies get a little too hot, right? So if you're, say, working out in the gym or taking a jog, for example. Yes, you are right. We begin to sweat. So if you said, we start sweating, you're absolutely correct. Sweating is our body's response to try and cool us down, right? Our internal body temperature is rising, and our body is trying to maintain that homeostasis. And so it produces sweat in order to cool us down. Now, the opposite actually happens when we're too cold, right? So what happens? We start to shiver, right? And that's our body's way of trying to generate more heat because our body temperature is actually dropping. And there are plenty of other examples, and we'll go through more of these as we move through the lectures this semester. Next, all life reproduces. And there are two main forms of reproduction that I want us to think about. One is sexual reproduction that includes two parents and a combination of genes from both of those parents. So sexual reproduction is how humans reproduce. So, right, you are a combination of the genes from your mom and dad, roughly about 50% from each. The second way an organism can reproduce is asexually, which means that there is only one parent. In cases of asexual reproduction, the offspring is identical to the parent. Now, quick question for you. Does a plant reproduce asexually or sexually? Now, I won't give the answer here, but I want you to think about this, maybe look up some information online, and we'll discuss it next time we see each other in class. And the answer might surprise you. Next up, all life evolves. Well, evolution can be defined as a type of organism can change over many generations based on what traits are passed on and what traits die out. We can see a few good examples of evolution here on the screen. At the bottom, we see an example of the evolution of the shape of the human skull. About 2 to 3 million years ago, Australopithecus, that you see at the left portion of your screen, circled here, you see that it had a very small amount of space for its brain. But as time went on, over millions of years, we see that our cranial capacity increased, and now to the modern times, we see what we generally think of as a human skull with lots of room for that big brain to think about all of those different thoughts. Similarly, we can see that over millions of years, the horse, over to the right side of our screen, began as an animal known as Hyracotherium, down at the bottom, which is about the shape and size of a modern day dog, with very different leg bones and teeth. But over approximately 50 million years, going towards the top of our slide, we see the changing of the shape of the leg bones and also the teeth of modern day horses until we get to what we now know as the modern day horse. Because evolution occurs on a time scale of millions to billions of years, a single organism cannot evolve. Evolution requires multiple generations to make those small incremental changes. And last, but certainly not least, of our 8 characteristics is that all life contains what's called DNA. And we're going to learn a lot more about DNA in the coming lectures, but for now, we're going to define it as the instruction manual for life. And the reason that all life has DNA is because DNA is the instruction manual, and it allows us to have the instructions to perform all of the functions that are required for our bodies or for any living thing. And that rounds out the 8 biological characteristics of life. If you're following along in the note sheet, you should have the first 8 questions filled out. If you do, feel free to move on to the next lecture segment, where we will begin to discuss the unifying themes of life that'll sort of bring it all together.